I was running late for work this morning while my wife was tending to our 1-year-old son, who was sick with a cold. She asked if I could stop at Walgreens down the street to get him some cough medicine. I was in a huge rush, but I didn't want him to go without it, so I headed over there as quickly as I could. My wife and I were on the phone as I was driving and pulling into the parking lot. The street was busy and packed with cars, and as I was walking up to the store, I noticed a woman putting her screaming child into the car just outside. My wife was reminding me which medicine to buy as I checked my phone for the time, and that's when it got weird. The second I walked into the store, my phone turned off and the call dropped. The sliding door closed behind me and the entire store was empty. The lighting was even different than what I was used to, fluorescent and cold. There was no one at the front and no one in any of the aisles I could see. I turned around to look outside and there was no cars in the street either, not even the woman with her child who was there just 5 seconds ago. I actually said out loud, "Hello?" twice, loudly, feeling like this was some sort of horror movie I was in. The entire store was silent, and I go to grab my phone again to film this just in case no one believed me, and of course it won't turn on. I turn the corner down a random aisle, and just like that, there's people there again. The lighting is different again, and warmer. There was even music now. I turn to look at the front, and there is a customer mid-transaction with the checker. My phone starts working again and my wife is calling me. She tells me it just went silent and said the call failed. I stood there for a minute and realized there was nothing I could do but just buy the medicine and go on with my day. I don't know if this was a glitch in the Matrix, odd or coincidental timing, or some weird parallel universe type stuff, but all I know is that it was strange as hell, and I don't really know who to tell this to. My birthday was coming up, so I made some plans with some pals to go out for dinner at an Indian restaurant. My friend called the restaurant to make a reservation for 8 people at 7 p.m. on a Friday under my name, both first and last name, and the host just said that they already had that reservation listed under the same name, number of people, time, and date. A little confused by the information, my friend apologized to the host and then called me asking if I or someone else had already made the reservation. I didn't, and after asking around, no one else did either. My friend then called the restaurant back and asked for another reservation under my name for 8 people at the exact same time and date. They accepted the reservation. On my birthday, we showed up at the dinner at 7 p.m., and there was another table for 8 people celebrating the birthday of the person with the same name as me. Exact same circumstances. Name, birthday, number of people, date and time, and location of the celebration, all by total coincidence. It also turned out that we have a mutual friend. I was working in my garden and had gotten myself a can of Coke Zero. I cracked it open on my way out the back door, took a few hearty chugs, and sat it on my small garden table I kept out by my raised beds, and then I got back to working in my garden. I had on wireless earbuds and was listening to a podcast as I worked on cleaning the pumpkin patch of weeds, when out of the blue I hear and practically feel a loud bang, to the point I exclaimed loudly, "What the fuck?" and pulled my earbuds out. I live in a rough neighborhood. There's been shootings and whatnot, so I kind of duck down and start looking around to get a feel of things. That's when I see it. My can of Coke is knocked down to the ground and just spilling foamy Coke everywhere. No way that's the noise, right? But I run over and pick it up, with the logic being Diet Coke probably isn't even good for plants, and I wipe it clean and start looking it over, and I realize not only is it full, it's completely unopened. I know I opened it. I know I drank half of it. And I know moments before I had seen it laying on the ground, shooting Coke up into the air. I even had to wipe it off. I have no idea what that bang was, or how my open spilled Coke suddenly became full and unopened in my hands. I lived in a shitty trailer in my early 20s when I was poor with 2 young kids. It had 2 bedrooms, which I had given to the kids, and I slept on the couch in the living room, which was in direct line of sight to the front door. I put the kids to bed around 9 p.m., and I always locked the door. Always. I still to this day clearly remember locking both the handle and deadbolt, and checking to make sure it was fully locked before taking a shower. Eventually, I fell asleep. I woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. on high alert. As my eyes cleared and I started thinking sensibly, I realized I was staring into the street. My front door was wide open. Not like, oh, it's a little open or cracked, or I didn't quite close it all the way and a strong wind came along. It was fully open, like a 90-degree angle. Plus, I had a glass storm door that was fully closed and latched, blocking any wind we might have had, which we didn't have anyways. I got up and walked to the door to close it, and that's when I lost my shit. The deadbolt was still in the locked position. It was fully turned to lock, sticking out into the living room air for God and everyone else to see. You ever have those moments where you swear there's ice in your veins? That was it for me. I've never been so scared in my life. In a closed door, you can't even turn the deadbolt to fully locked without it being lined up and the door jammed properly. I knew I had locked that door, and yet here it was, staring me in the face. I didn't sleep without the lights on for a week. I had a friend over last night. We ran into each other earlier in the day, and we made plans to have dinner together. She comes over and we hang out on the couch for around an hour, just chatting and whatnot. I stand up because I get a phone call, so I go into my bedroom for around 10 to 15 minutes. I go back out, and she's not there anymore. Okay, so she's in the bedroom, right? I sit on the couch to wait for her, but she doesn't come out. Eventually I go to check on her, and the bathroom is empty. Now I'm weirded out. Did she leave for no reason? I didn't hear the door open or close, and I have a pretty heavy door. I even go outside into the hallway to check if she's there for some reason, but she's just promptly disappeared. So now I'm thinking she left for whatever reason, so I call her. It rings for a while and she eventually picks up. Immediately I think it's weird. If she left my flat, she should be on the street, but it's very quiet wherever she is and she sounds like she just woke up. I ask her why she left my flat and she had no idea what I was talking about. I just get really frustrated and ask her where she is. I'm at home taking a nap. Your phone call woke me up. I could hear rustling sheets, and as I said, there's no way her side of the phone call would be so quiet if she just left my flat. I live in a really busy area. I request a video call her and there she is, in her home, in her bed. She has no makeup on, she's in her PJs, looking confused, and her eyes are still kinda puffy from sleep. I asked her if she remembered coming to my flat. She just looked confused and said, "Did we make plans today?" How could she say that after running into me earlier, and she came to my apartment to chat, but she never said goodbye, and then she went home to take a nap? Obviously, there's no way she got home, removed her makeup, undid her hair, and changed her clothes within 15 minutes. She lives like an hour and a half away from me. I have no clue what to think of it. Hi, a 23-year-old female just got home. I was lying in bed relaxing, scrolling through Instagram, and I heard my roommate, a 27 male, outside my window, scream, a pure guttural scream. I heard him punch his truck and say, "God fucking damn it." So I get out of bed to unlock the door because I'm guessing it was a shit day, but he wasn't outside. The neighbors were playing with their kids, quiet but somewhat busy street. So I text him, "Are you okay?" And 20 minutes later I get a text from him saying, "I'm on my way home and I'm fucking pissed." Still a 30 to 40 minute drive. He hasn't left work. So when he gets home, I asked him if he came home and drove off. He said no. I then asked him if he had lost his cool. He asked me how I knew that. I said, "Was it around 5:50 p.m.? He said yes. It was around the time he texted me back, 20 minutes later. I asked him if he said those words and punched his truck. He said it was verbatim what he did and said. I'm not sure what this means. He was over 20 miles away towards the city. There's no way I could hear him during rush hour traffic, but I did, and I'm kinda freaked out. This happened about 6 years ago, and I only found this up today. My wife and I just got out of college and didn't know what to do outside of looking for jobs. One day we were bored, so I drove us to a local butterfly sanctuary. It was the first time I had been there in years, and didn't notice a forest trail that was open to the public. We decided to try it out, and it was really relaxing. The loud noises of the city were gone. We met a few other people on the trail at first, and even passed by a forest adventure theme park near the entrance. After a few minutes of walking, it started to get really foggy. I saw 2 young pine trees on each side of the trail bending towards each other and creating an arch. I jokingly commented to my wife that we might be walking to Silent Hill. She just chuckled and we continued on. It was getting a bit worrying. We'd been walking around for 2.5 hours already, and the trail just continued straight as a highway, seemingly no end and other people in sight. Finally, a huge boulder stuck on one side of the trail broke the monotony. It was enormous. We had to slowly walk around sideways while hugging it, or else we'd fall into the ravine on the other side of the path. The trail continued on for another 2.5 hours. We met my sister-in-law a few days after that and told her our experience of the trail. She said that it was weird. She used to regularly jog the trail and finished it in 20 to 30 minutes. So we decided to try the trail again with my sister-in-law, and she was right. The trail was really short. We finished walking it in an hour, and it looked completely different. No huge boulder, no pine trees forming an arch. It was winding and not at all straight. In June, I lost my wallet after a night out. I'm pretty responsible and don't lose important things often. It was very bizarre. I was out at a bar with some friends, walked home, and had a recollection of taking my wallet out of my pants at the end of the night. I was a little tipsy, but not hammered. I used a slim wallet that only holds a couple cards, not the big bulky type, and I kept my wallet in my front pocket. The next day, my wallet was gone. I called the bar, called the police station, it was nowhere. No one used my card, so I didn't think it was stolen, and I was determined to find it. It had my license and a couple credit cards in it, and I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of ordering new ones. My condo is only 850 square feet, and I live alone, so I didn't have that much stuff around. I searched literally every drawer and crevice, and it never showed up. I reluctantly attribute it to having one too many that night, even though that didn't seem fair or really explain anything. After about 5 days, I caved and ordered a new license, cards, wallet, etc. It's now a Friday in September. This might be gross to some of you, but I always wear the same pair of pants to work for a week straight, changing my shirt and undershirt along the way, of course. I don't have a washer and dryer at my place, so this cuts back on laundry, and I sit at a desk all day, so it's not like they get dirty. So, since it's Friday, it's the 5th time this week I've worn these pants. I've also worn and washed them several other times since June. I just got home from work and went to take my wallet out of my pants and put it on the counter like I do every day, and have done every day this week. There were 2 wallets in my pants. The new one and the old one, with all of my cards still in it. I'm sitting here in absolute shock, somewhere in between laughing and panicking at the absurdity of it. My sister moved multiple states away 3 years ago. Her husband gives very thoughtful jewelry pieces every Mother's Day. They're always extremely sentimental and bespoke to convey a specific sentiment or memory. 2 years ago, he gave her a gold necklace with a heart. Carved inside was their family's initials and their daughter's year of birth, with diamonds to the center where the heart meets a point, because it's their daughter's birthstone. Since being given that gift, she's never left the state to visit home. She's also never been to my current house before leaving. I also live pretty far from home, and family hasn't made the visit, but I've lived here 7 years now and haven't moved or spent long visits with my family, just daytime drop-ins. My sister's necklace went missing sometime in spring last year. She thought it might have broken and fallen off while out and about, and she was very distressed about it, because it was a very expensive gift. She felt absolutely horrible about it going missing. When we chatted about it, she actually told me she wasn't going to tell her husband about it until she searched everywhere possible. The entire house, the car, her workplace. She even called the stores she shopped at regularly asking if they had found it and turned it in, but nothing. Just this week, I was pulling out old clothes and shoes to donate. My son went through a growth spurt, and I got wider, and I figured it was time to clean house. I was pulling out all the old shoes and purses at the bottom of my closet, and there, in the very back of my closet, I found my sister's necklace. There's absolutely no way that this could have ended up here. My sister hasn't come to visit at all, and there's no way this would have ended up in our state, in my house, without her having mailed it personally. And she's never mailed me anything, besides sending gifts directly from a seller that she'd never had personally touched. And it's not as though it's a similar looking piece or a mass-produced item. This was specifically carved with the birth year of their daughter, and their initials, and the daughter's diamond birthstone. But it gets even more strange. I immediately FaceTime her when I find it. I was already trying to figure out how on earth it would have come to be in my closet. I haven't gone to her state yet, and my son hasn't visited there. Our parents had, but they went before she had gotten that gift. When she picked up and I showed her what I found, I was honestly bracing myself because I was sure she was going to be just as confused and have a million questions I couldn't answer. But when I showed her what I had found, she set the phone down to put herself in full view and pulled out her necklace from under her blouse. She had her necklace. Not just that, but she had no recollection of losing it. No memory at all of talking to me about losing it, searching her house, or calling shops. In fact, she was sure she's always had it in her jewelry box and thought I was being weird about finding the same one because it was likely a really common necklace. When I pointed out that it had their same initials and birth year of their daughter carved into it, she just shrugged and said it was a coincidence, but not at all strange. When I pressed it, she laughed and assumed I was pulling a prank of some kind, which is extremely out of my character. I'm not one to pull pranks. She then asked if I had made it as some kind of joke. I'm at a total loss here. I feel like reality is all jumbled up and I'm the only one who's noticed it's off. I was so confused, so I called our mom and told her what happened. I told her the whole thing, asking if she recalled her losing the necklace. I was sure if she did, it would have come up in their calls as well. She didn't recall anything. But the way she acted in the call was even more strange. She said, "Well, these things happen. Don't let it drive you crazy. Our family is just sensitive to these kinds of things," and then wouldn't even elaborate on it, which is also very unlike her character. This happened to me years ago in college, and I don't know if this is the right place for my story. If it is, here you go. I'd walked home from a bar that was 5 doors away because I'd broken a heel on the shoes I was wearing. My plan was to get different shoes and go back because my roommate and friends were still there. I took the shoes off and jogged barefoot down the sidewalk because I was alone and it was before 1 a.m. I placed one foot on my front step, reached into my jacket pocket to pull out my keys, and there I was, standing in my living room. I dropped my keys on the floor because I was so startled. I hadn't even walked up the steps, much less unlocked the door and walked inside. All the lights were on, and the movie Hitch was playing on the TV. It was the scene where he was walking and drinking liquid Benadryl from a straw. I still had my jacket and crossbody purse on, but the broken shoes I'd been carrying were on the floor near a table that was against the wall furthest from the door. I was so confused and it made me want to cry, which became even more overwhelming when I looked down and saw that I was wearing a pair of untied tennis shoes I'd never seen before. I pulled my cell phone out of my purse just as I got a call, and the ringtone was Rehab by Amy Winehouse, but it had always just been a default tone and was almost always on silent. Before I could answer it, my roommate came in through the front door with 2 of our friends asking me where I had been and why I hadn't answered my phone. I couldn't even answer her, I was so freaked out. I just looked down at my phone and saw the notification that I had 9 missed calls and that it was 2:17 a.m. I had been gone for over an hour. I sat down on the couch and started crying. It took me at least 10 minutes to calm down enough to tell them what happened, and they all kept telling me I was just drunk. I knew I wasn't drunk though. I'd had 2 beers at the bar because I'd shown up late after working in a restaurant until almost 11:30. I never set the drinks down either, so the other explanation that I had was that they were drugged, and that just wasn't possible. They told me I must have just forgotten that I bought the shoes that I was wearing now, which seemed even more ridiculous than having never seen them before. I've talked about that night in therapy, and have tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, but I just can't. There are things I remember incorrectly from before that night. Memories I'm told didn't happen the way they exist in my mind or at all. People I think look different, physical things that aren't right, like the knob on my dad's back door being on the opposite side. I rarely tell people about my experience, but recently I told a friend who has a PhD in theoretical physics and has known me since childhood. At no point did he offer an explanation or validation, but he did entertain my questions about ideas regarding the existence of other dimensions or, quote, timelines. He talked a lot about what we don't and can't know, as well as the existence of things that just can't be explained. Admittedly, he's way too smart, and a lot of the things he said made absolutely no sense to me. It did bring me here, though, to bore anyone who reads this and hopes maybe someone will tell me something I haven't heard yet. The most unhinged thing ever just happened to me, and I honestly don't know where to start. I'll try to start at the beginning, though. I'm a 41-year-old female and I have a daughter that's 23. We don't live together. She's all grown up, but we try to get together every couple of weeks and spend some time together. Tonight we went shoe shopping and decided to stop next door of the shoe place at Ruby Tuesdays for dinner. We were hungry. We didn't really want Ruby Tuesdays, but it was close to where we were shopping, and we were so hungry, so we agreed we would just go there and get a quick bite. We get to our table and we're seated by a woman wearing a pink handkerchief in her hair. She takes our drink orders and eventually brings our drinks. A few minutes later, she takes our food orders too. Time starts going by and the place has hardly anyone there, and my kid and I are just catching up. I notice a table next to me, 3 women, appears to be maybe 3 generations of women, grandma, mom, adult daughter. While waiting for our meal, I notice their plates are empty, like totally empty, but they keep taking bites. There is no conversation. The youngest of the group is sitting very upright and smiling and nodding. The middle-aged one of the group says, "We should just get this wrapped up to go." But there's nothing on their plates. I sort of gesture to my kid like, "You seeing this?" Beck is playing for music over the speakers, and I make a comment. Beck is sort of a weird choice for Ruby Tuesday. I quietly sing along though. Dave Matthews Band plays next, Crash Into Me. My kid just says, "You know all these songs." I reply, "I'm a 90s kid." We laugh. An hour later, and we still have no food. I'm just wondering to myself, do I want to be a Karen and ask when our food will come out? I politely flag over a server, the woman in the pink handkerchief, and say, "Hey, I have to work really early tomorrow. Can I just pay for our drinks we had, and you can cancel my order? It's been an hour and we have to get going." She says yes and walks away. I swear to God, I really do. She walked past me again, going in the same direction not 5 seconds later, stops and says, "Your order should be out soon." I glance at my kid with that knowing look. My kid says quietly, "I'm starting to feel really anxious. Can we just leave?" I nod, relieved it wasn't just me feeling weird. Dave Matthews' Crash Into Me plays again. We're uncomfortable. Pink handkerchief server comes back around and says, "The kitchen is backed up. Please don't leave." I insisted that we had to go. I pay, tip, and we leave. The whole vibe changed as soon as we stepped outside. We spent the whole car ride asking each other, "Did you see that? What the hell just happened?" Everything felt bad. I wasn't even hungry anymore considering I didn't even eat. Everything was just really, really weird, and my kid noticed all of it too. It is tragic, and the strangest story that happened to me 7 years ago. This is the first time I'm sharing it with someone. I haven't even shared it with my mother. The year was 2017 in the summer. I returned to my home country after 1 year from a university abroad. My father picked me up from the airport and we had dinner at home. Everything was as usual as it could be. I went to bed around 12 p.m. and slept immediately, but I woke up around 5 a.m. to pee. I went directly to the bathroom, which is in my room, so I didn't even step out of my room. We all think different things when peeing, such as the color of the walls or what to eat for breakfast. For this time though, out of nowhere, I started thinking that if I were to choose one, would I choose my mother or my father as being dead? Then I thought my sister would be devastated without my mother, and my father cannot handle my sister in her teenage years. I decided the absence of my father would be easier than losing my mother. I finished peeing and was just about to get back into my bed when I heard a strong snoring noise. My father was always snoring since my childhood, and sometimes we would have fun with it. However, this time it felt stronger and not natural. The noise led me to the living room where I found my father lying on the couch with a little blood on his nose. I tried to wake him up, but he was completely unconscious. I called 911 and woke my mother up, but once we arrived at the hospital, he had passed away. He was only 48. Doctors said it was because of a cerebral hemorrhage by high blood pressure. We don't know what time it happened. I'm still confused by the situation. I wasn't there for a year and had the chance of having one last dinner and conversation with my father. I found him like that and acted with cold blood. I can't imagine the trauma they would live through if my mother or sister would find him lying on the couch. And of course, I still think about the thing I thought in the bathroom, and what would have happened if I chose my mother instead. The story I'm about to share is 100% truth and really happened to me about 15 years ago, believe it or not, but to this day, I cannot explain it. When I was 15, my family moved into a rental house. There was always a weird energy about the house. I can't explain it, but something always felt eerie about it. It was a beautiful old home though, and an elderly widow had lived in it before us. She had been an opera singer and a college professor in the arts, and her name was Mrs. Martin. She had become kind of a character in the house that we'd reference often, as her children rented us the home with literally all of her belongings still in it. They didn't even clean out the fridge. It was very strange. The house was basically left like the day she had passed away. Oh, and the attic was infested with bats. No clue if it's relevant, but it contributed to the spooky factor that was always felt in that house. I never really liked staying there by myself either, even during the daytime. On the night of the incident, I was home with my best friend Mallory, also 15, her younger sister Olive, 13, and my little sister Emma, who was 11. Mallory and I were in the living room watching a movie, and Olive and Emma were hanging out in the den. which was a room off of the living room with a door, and they were watching TV. No parents were home at the time. At one point, my sister Emma decided to go upstairs and take a shower. The way the house was set up, there was only one staircase, and you had to walk through the living room to use it. So she came out of the den, walked through the living room, went up, showered, and was up there for maybe half an hour. When she was done, she walked down the stairs in a white towel, stopped on the 6th step, and went, "Hey guys," with a little wave to which we acknowledged her cheerfully, and then she kept walking down the stairs, through the living room by Mallory and I watching TV, and opened the door into the den and closed it behind her. My mom had been folding clothes down in the den earlier, which is why she came downstairs to get dressed. Maybe 2 to 5 minutes later, when Mallory and I are still in the living room and Olive and we assume Emma are watching TV in the den, we hear from over our shoulder, "Hey guys," in the same inflection and tone as before. And it's my sister Emma, in a white towel, who had walked down the stairs, was stopped at the 6th step, had her hand up for a small wave, and then went to keep walking down when Mallory and I both gasped. We turned and looked into each other's faces with absolute horror. It happened so quickly, but we both bolted upright, ran into the den, burst open the door to a startled Olive. Emma was trailing close behind with a, "What's going on?" When I opened that door, I truly expected to see another version of my sister sitting in there. But no, it was just Olive. Mallory and I immediately began questioning them. "Emma, didn't you just walk down here a couple of minutes ago?" "Olive, are you sure Emma didn't come into the den just a few minutes ago?" "Emma, did you come downstairs after the shower, but then go back up somehow?" But we knew there was no way she could have come back up the stairs without walking past us in the living room. It made no sense. Both girls were so confused, and beginning to get scared. They truly had no idea what we were talking about. Emma swore that she only came down the stairs that one time, and Olive swore that she had never walked into the den in a towel before we all came in together just then. Because our sisters were so young at the time, and we could tell that they were getting spooked, we decided to just pretend we were kidding and left them to go back to the living room. I remember sitting in silence, and maybe even asking, "You saw that too, right?" And then we never spoke of it again. I honestly didn't even tell my parents or my sister what had happened until a couple of years ago. My sister just said that she had no memory of it at all. I haven't spoke to Mallory since high school, so I have no idea if she remembers it either. All I know is, if Mallory hadn't been there to witness it, and have the same reaction I did in that moment, before either of us had even spoke a word, I probably would have thought that I was losing my mind. I'll never forget the look of horror and confusion she gave me, and that I probably gave right back to her when Emma came down the stairs that second time. To this day, it still creeps me out to think about it. In the years since, I've read many stories about glitches in the Matrix, and seen some about time loops as well. People witnessing the same event happen twice or more in the same way, usually close together. I believe this is what Mallory and I experienced with my sister that day. We only lived in that house for a year before my parents purchased their own home and we moved. Last year, my sister went back to visit the town and said that she drove by that house. Apparently they had split it into 2 homes to rent out to the college kids. We both agreed that the strange energy forces that existed in that home were probably not too happy to be split in 2. Hi there, I'm a 39-year-old female, and this occurred I think a little over a year ago. This is a very real event. No drugs, no alcohol. I was in our bathroom, which has a line of sight out the back window to where my hubby passes by before coming in the door. So, I was just doing my hair, and I looked over to see him outside the window walking up, switching the Kroger bag to his other hand to grab his keys, etc. Then I heard the door and watched him walk by into the kitchen. I said, "Hey baby," and he didn't hear me. Not surprising, his hearing isn't the best. But I heard him lay the bags down, and then lay his keys and wallet down. So I stuck a clip into that last bit of hair to do, and started out of the bathroom door to go give him a hug and kiss. Well, here it is. Instantly, when I walked outside the doorway of the bathroom, everything was completely different. All the lights were out, and they had certainly been on a moment prior. Totally weirded out, I felt shaky and whatnot, but I guess I managed to walk a few steps to look toward the kitchen, only to see my husband wasn't even there. Then, before I even had an attempt to process what the hell just happened, I saw through our kitchen window his headlights coming down the driveway. It was then I started to get extra weirded out and for sure had to sit down. I remember I propped myself sitting on the edge of the couch arm, and the next part is what freaks me out the most. I couldn't believe my eyes at all as I watched him walk across that window. It was like someone had just literally rewound a tape, and I was replaying all of it. The exact same motions, the exact same sounds, all the way through, including him setting the keys and bags down. The only thing I could think of at this point is how crazy I would actually sound if I told anyone this, so I just want to know if anybody has any ideas of what happened. I'm open to hear about it. It's the single most unbelievable, existential type of thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I'll never forget about it. Let me start out by saying this will be long. My heart is already beating fast telling this story, and only the closest to me know that this happened until now. When I was 25 years old, I was driving home from work one night. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. I was driving on Sunset Boulevard heading west towards my apartment in Brentwood. For those that are not familiar with the area, there's an expanse of sunset near UCLA that is very curvy. It is 2 lanes on either side with no shoulder. It was 8:30 on a Saturday night, so there was some traffic. I was driving along, and all of a sudden about 50 feet in front of me I saw a car, but I was looking at the passenger door. A car had spun out of control and was perpendicular in my lane, and I didn't have time to stop. I looked to my right and saw that there was a car next to me, so I had nowhere to go. I instinctively turned my car all the way to the right anyway. Once I had cleared the first car, I spun it all the way to the left, still trying to avoid the second car. While all of this was happening, I remembered a time with my mom at Disney World when I was 3. This is not a memory I have ever had before. I vaguely remember other parts of that trip, but this memory was not one of them. I realized then that my life was flashing before me, and I was going to die. I had never been so sure of anything in my life. Every part of me knew I was about to die. I started screaming. To this day, I don't know if I vocalized anything or if it was all in my head. I yelled, "No, no, this isn't fair. I'm not done yet," all the while swerving all over Sunset Boulevard. I suddenly stopped my car and I was now perpendicular in the opposite lane of traffic. I looked around and there was not a single car anywhere. It was like everything had been wiped clean. I put my car in reverse and proceeded home. I did not see a single car the rest of the way. I was only 5 minutes away from home at that point, but Sunset Boulevard on a Saturday night was completely empty. I got to my apartment and parked on the street. I didn't see one person. While walking to my apartment, I came to the conclusion that I had died, and because I said no, I was stuck in some limbo. I had never wanted my roommate to be home so badly. Unfortunately, she wasn't. I called one of my best friends and said, "I need to ask you some questions. Please just answer me, and I'll explain after." I asked her my name, my age, what city we lived in, and the date. Obviously, she was very alarmed. I explained that I thought I was dead, and I wasn't sure I was really on the phone with her at all. She tried to convince me that I was alive and that everything was okay. There was no way mathematically to escape it. There was nowhere for the car on the right to go. This moment has haunted me my whole life since. There have been times when I've questioned my existence. I've wondered if my quote life since has been a very detailed death trip and I'm actually lying on Sunset Boulevard bleeding out. After many years of meditation, spiritual practice, and belief in quantum physics, I wonder what life I jumped into.